Are there any rules to keep in mind for traveling to very cold regions or high altitudes? So high altitudes, if you're coming from a low altitude and going to a high altitude, you're going to have to watch out for that potential for leakage. Okay, so that's one thing that you got to watch out for. It's the same thing going in an airplane, whatever. If you're starting low and ending up high, the pressure in the air is going to be lower than whatever is inside your pen that you filled up at sea level. Okay, so there is a potential for leakage there. Keep your nib up. That's always just kind of the number one rule. Keep your nib up, and then any air that escapes out of the pen won't have ink that's coming with it. So that's one thing. I don't think the high altitude in and of itself necessarily makes any big drastic difference in terms of how the pen performs, other than, you know, if you're at a higher altitude, it's probably colder. It's probably going to be a drier environment, so your pen may dry out a little bit more. You know, that's one thing to look out for. And then, you know, if you're in a high altitude environment, if you're probably in the mountains somewhere, you're probably going to be driving in places where there will be more drastic elevation changes as you're driving. So that's something to look out for. But the high altitude in and of itself, I don't think makes a big difference. So if you're traveling to very cold regions, you know, ink is made of water, so don't let it freeze. You know, don't take your pen and let it sit somewhere in a freezing environment. If you need to do that, Noodler's makes a freeze-resistant ink. It's the Noodler's Polar inks. It's, you know, several different inks. Not a huge palette, but it's, you know, several of the more popular colors that you can get in that Polar ink form. They are lubricated, they're freeze-resistant, and they're permanent. So check those out. But, you know, basically you want to make sure that your pen doesn't freeze, because if it does, the ink inside, the water will expand and likely not be very good for your pen. Also, if it's cold, it's probably going to be dry. Watch for pens drying up. Try to get a pen with caps that seal really well. Use your pens regularly, and if you're not using them regularly, make sure you're cleaning them out and that they're not drying up, because the less relative humidity you have, the faster your pen will want to dry out. Okay?